Boom, 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 boom. A side, B side. What side are you on?
Welcome back. It's A Side, B Side podcast. What's up, Adam?
Hey, Brooke, how's it going?
All right. How was your week?
Yeah, it was good. Just plugging along. Things are starting to de-freeze up here, thaw. We're in the rainy season now, so plenty of dealing with wet walks and the pup hating the weather. But other than that, been pretty normal.
Cool. I got some good viewing in this weekend. I had a little extra time this weekend, so I finished Ginny and Georgia on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
It's cute, cheesy, cute. I also watched the series called The One on Netflix, and basically scientists have completely done away with the need for dating apps because they are able to genetically find your perfect match. Like you're guaranteed to fall in love with them, which is cool, but there's some shady stuff that happens behind the scenes. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, the trailer I've seen sort of has this foreboding vibe that everything it might be too good to be true, or be careful what you wish for type of deal.
I don't want to give anything away. It's more to do with the people.
Gotcha.
And that one's based in the UK. It was really good though. It was better than I was expecting it to be. I thought it was going to be a little more romantic, cheesy, but not at all. Not at all.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Watched this movie called Been So Long, and that has I must be on a UK kick or something, because that one has Michaela Cole, which if you've ever seen I May Destroy You, or she's been in Black Mirror, Chewing Gum on Netflix, she's phenomenal. I mean, she's amazing. And this is it is a musical. I was really surprised at the fact I just happened to stumble upon it on Netflix, and I really like her. So I was like, let me check this out. I'm sure all of our UK listeners know exactly who I'm talking about, because I think she should be way bigger here than she is. But I'm pretty sure she's, pretty well known over there, because she's got a lot of stuff under her belt.
I mean, she was even in Star Wars, the Last Jedi.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, as Resistance Monitor. I don't know who that is, but that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Money Heist, still watching that one because that's got several seasons on it. So I watched the worst movie, and it's so funny because I believe the Guardian actually came out with an interview that said the same, or an article that said the same thing. Worst movie ever. Deadly Illusions on Netflix. Not good. No, not good at all. Oh. It's got Kristen Davis from Sex and the City, Dermot Mulroney. I love Dermot Mulroney. He's one of my little actor crushes, but Dermot Mulroney from My Best Friend's Wedding.
Yeah. Is that the one? I think it's popped up on my Netflix as like it's the number one movie in Netflix in America right now or something.
Probably, but it's awful.
Oh, okay.
It's so bad. It's so bad. Like the trailer looks so good, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be great. It is. It's even Lifetime is like, nah, we're good. We don't want it. We don't want that.
Fair enough.
And then Falcon and the Winter Soldier finally dropped on Friday. Got to watch that. Yeah. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. I mean, the first episode of anything, they got to kind of like catch everybody up and set the scene. And so like not a whole lot happened, but.
No, but you get to see a little more backstory on both of them. Especially Winter Soldier. He's a lot more humanized because, I mean, he's of course just been Winter Soldier, killing machine in everything. Even when he's a good guy, he's still Winter Soldier, killing machine. So it's good to see like a human aspect to him, which is what you get to see. You get to see that in Falcon too. You get like backstory on his family and stuff. So it will be very interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, I think it's gonna. I mean, my expectations are raised after WandaVision, which I really enjoyed. So I'm just scared for like July, because then they'll go back to doing movies, and I won't have a series to watch every one day a week. So because they're gonna do Winter Soldier, then they'll have Loki, and then July Black Widow's coming to theaters,
Yeah.
so they're not going to have a series that month. So I'm going to go into withdrawal.
Guess you'll have to find another network, another streaming service.
I guess.
But I am after WandaVision, like you said, my expectations are high and my hopes are high because it was and of course it's Marvel, so I don't know why I'm surprised, but even the fight scenes felt cinematic, like I was in a theater, like it wasn't a show, like they were movie level.
Yeah, it's been interesting because I've been rewatching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was on for like 7 seasons, I think. And just the comparison in the special effects and the story quality and the filming, like the Disney Plus Marvel series look like movies,
right?
Whereas like you could definitely tell that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was a TV show. It didn't have the same budget. And then like the Inhumans, which was just not good, that little miniseries they did probably 5-6 years ago now, on ABC, just really suffered in terms of, you could tell they didn't have the budget they needed to do to make it cool. So it's really neat to see how awesome the Disney Plus series look.
Yeah, they're really good. I am very excited. So Friday, I'm like, yeah, get here so I can watch the next one.
Yeah, I've been known to stay up till 3 a.m. to watch the new episode of WandaVision. And that's what I did last Friday too, for the new episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier. So there's a decent chance that I'll be watching it in the middle of the night.
Well, I get up at 4:30, so I'm not going to stay up until 3, but I will watch it when I get off of work.
So did you know that the main character from that Deadly Illusions film
was Kelsey Grammer's daughter?
Yeah.
I learned that in that article today. Yes, I didn't. And actually the article talks about how she is the best part of the movie, and she really is. And the thing is, she's not even an established actor like Kristen Davis and Dermot Mulroney.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're kind of on like the tail end of their career. So like you said, like this feels kind of like a Lifetime movie setup.
It even had my girl from Shameless who plays Veronica on Shameless, Shanola. But she wasn't in it that long, so I'm not gonna, I don't have any knock against her. It was not good. It wasn't.
Too bad.
Anyway, but what about you? What'd you watch this week besides
Falcon
and Winter Soldier?
I've been rewatching Elementary with Lucy Liu and, oh my goodness, I always forget his
Johnny
name.
Lee Miller.
But it's the Johnny Lee Miller, yeah. The update of Sherlock Holmes and Watson in modern day, and that's always a fun one to just kind of get through. And again, I've been rewatching S.H.I.E.L.D. It gets a little frustrating sometimes because I really liked the first couple seasons of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then it got really weird. And I've been trying to get through season 5 now for like 4 years. It's really, really roughly paced. And they bounce around a lot. So I want to finish it because now the whole series is done and I want to be able to kind of do the completionist thing and complete the series. But I'm midway through season 5 and I am struggling.
So is it going to bother you if you don't finish?
Oh yeah, I will have to finish it someday. I don't know why. I'm one of those people that like needs to watch the entire series. That's why I love shows that only last a couple seasons, because then I can just be like, oh, I wish there was more of that, as opposed to shows that like just keep going on and you're like, oh, there's another season and we don't really have anything else to say.
I feel like that's why British shows are so good, because they're like, no, we're going to get out when we're on top. We're going to do like maybe 4 seasons, maybe. And they have like 8 episodes a season.
Or they'll like switch, they'll like make a major change. Like Death in Paradise, which was this murder mystery show set in, I think, maybe Jamaica or Haiti, but it had a British detective, and they had like 3 different detectives over the 4 seasons. But they kept kind of keeping it fresh with the new cast. And like American shows, like they'll just stick with like the same actors and then run out of things to say.
Right. So is that all you watched this week?
Yeah. I've been working a lot and trying to get through a pile of books that I have been trying to read for a while now. So I am halfway through the new Star Wars High Republic Light of the Jedi, which is a story about old Jedi before any of the movies, like hundreds of years before. and also just got a book called What Would Skeletor Do, which I think is
Like
going to be my
G.I. Joe
new...
Skeletor?
No, like Masters of the Universe.
That's what
like
I meant.
He-Man.
Sorry, He-Man.
Yeah. So
That's Cobra.
that's my new
Cobra Commander is G.I. Joe.
Cobra Commander, and Ultimate Leader. Yeah. So that's... I haven't dove into that yet, but I really feel like that's going to be a big change for me. What would Skeletor do?
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so this is episode 37. And before we get into it, I'm just going to tell you, I had a totally different story picked out, and I came across this, and I said, I have to do this. I'm not going to hold on to this. I can't wait. This is just so insane and wild and unheard of that I have to do it.
Interesting.
Have you ever thought to yourself, man, I sure would like to make a podcast. I've got so much to say about blank. Well, if you haven't heard about Anchor, you really should. It is the easiest way to make a podcast, and it's absolutely free. All right, I'm going to tell you why it's so easy. Okay, so with Anchor, there's creation tools that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many others. And you can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Trust me, I'm so excited about this. You can be too. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Okay, so I'm going to call this the chilling spy adventures of John and Mark. Whenever you think of criminal mastermind or fantastical fiction writer, I'm assuming your first thought's not a 14-year-old boy.
No, not currently, but maybe it will be going forward.
No, yeah, because in this case, he would seem to be both. The writer of a spy fiction turned reality that most adults could never dream up, and maybe a budding criminal mastermind. So for
Sounds like a CW
series. For their protection, their real names cannot be used. They are known, even in court documents, as John, who's 14, and Mark, 16. Our story today involves a fictional female spy, 6 fictional characters in an MSN chat room, and over 58,000 lines of text correspondence.
Wow.
Actually, that's just the tip of an iceberg, that 58,000.
Okay.
So our story starts on June 29th of 2008. Okay, actually, we're going to back it up about 9 months. First, we meet Mark, our 16-year-old. Mark is from a middle-class family in Greater Manchester. Another UK story. I told you I'm in a UK kick lately. I don't know. Our story last week was from the UK. Mark did reasonably well in school, and he worked part-time at a restaurant. He wasn't a troublesome kid. He was just an average kid. Never really been in trouble in his life, and he was actually really close to his family. Just an ordinary teen. So how does an ordinary teen end up charged with murder? Let's find out. So Mark goes online and he meets young Rachel West. Rachel and Mark develop a budding romance over several weeks, several months. Did I mention she's 16 as well?
No, but
okay.
Makes sense.
Okay, so 16-year-old Mark, 16-year-old Rachel, they developed this budding online romance. You remember back in the day when, in the late 90s, early 2000s, everybody was in chat rooms, And
I love AIM.
AIM?
AIM,
Most normal people called it AIM.
Okay. It's one of those text things. I never know if I've ever heard it out loud.
Well, the thing with these chat rooms is MSN, and A lot of chat rooms were kind of sort of monitored, or maybe a little. MSN really wasn't at the time. So like I said, Mark and Rachel, they developed this budding romance, and then Mark is introduced to John, who is Rachel's stepbrother. John and Mark become buds online and in person, typical topics of conversation: movie, sports, clothes, sex. They're teen boys.
Mm-hmm.
Mark starts spending upwards of 12 hours a day online. That's a lot of time.
It's a lot of screen time.
A lot of screen time. John would really be the only friend that Mark would meet in person. Mark had made several attempts to meet Rachel in person, but for one reason or another, it just never seemed to work out. So they kept their romance online. But then things got a little dark when Kevin enters the picture. Kevin is another teenage boy that was obsessed with Rachel. So much so that he'd actually been stalking her. One day, Mark is informed that Kevin has kidnapped Rachel. And he has actually threatened to kill Rachel unless Mark meets his demands. His demand, you might ask? To expose himself on his webcam and record himself performing sex acts on himself.
That's pretty over the top.
Yeah. Mark, young 16-year-old boy, he's fallen in love. He doesn't want his girlfriend, the girl of his dreams. He doesn't want anything to happen to her. Mm-hmm. So to save his girlfriend, because he's convinced of her imminent danger, he agrees. Rachel is released. Kevin releases Rachel, and she mysteriously vanishes for a little bit. Then she emerges again, only to be, okay, I do want to put a warning because there is going to be some graphic language. So Rachel reappears. She's released. She vanishes a little bit, and then she reappears. And then Mark is informed by Kevin that she had been raped and murdered.
Yikes.
Kevin describes her death in detail to Mark. He says things like, kicked her in her stomach, put her head underwater, then out, freezing cold. And she stained my sheets when she was bleeding. You weren't there for her, however much she screamed for you.
So Kevin killed her.
So Kevin claims responsibility for her death. So John, after the death of Rebecca, John and Mark grow even closer. Again, John is Rebecca's stepbrother. Soon, Janet enters the chat. Janet Dobinson, is a British spy, an MI5 agent who has been watching Mark and wants to recruit him into MI5. Janet only wrote in capital letters because, that's what MI5 agents do, apparently.
Yeah, because spies are subtle. That's what they do. They write in caps.
I mean, my FBI agent right now, he's probably typing me out a message in all caps. It's all right, James. You can go ahead and send it.
Just like yelling. I'm being very secretive.
So whenever I make that FBI joke, my mom says, what? I said, we all have FBI agents in our laptops and phones watching us at all times, right?
I think mine's NSA.
Maybe so. NSA probably, but whatever. Yeah. Whoever. So over the course of several weeks, Janet convinces Mark to carry out several tests to prove himself and his MI5 worthiness before he could receive his first official mission. One such test was getting John out of school because his life was in danger.
Well,
maybe the same people that killed his stepsister?
Yeah, Kevin.
Right. Janet also describes John as the single most important person in the country because he knows the access code to a secret safe hidden at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean that's valued at 568 billion pounds or $671 billion. And only a few countries know about this. Because I don't know if John's like maybe a hacker.
Or yeah, we've got this super secret code. Let's give it to a 14-year-old boy.
I'm thinking maybe John is a hacker and he has hacked into something. I mean, hackers start young.
Yeah, that's true.
They start really young.
So we had the get him out of school, which he stole from Ferris Bueller, and then the plot of Mercury Rising with Bruce Willis and a very, very young, I think Haley Joel Osment, where a kid knows a secret code and Bruce Willis has to keep him alive. So
okay,
I'm seeing where this kid's getting his ideas.
So Mark succeeds in his first test of getting John out of school by convincing school officials that he just had a dentist appointment.
Right.
Good job, Mark. Good job. Good job. Well, days turn into weeks and the chats continue. And Janet's requests become more and more outrageous. Mark never questions. He unfailingly believes everything that Janet is telling him. Mark, I think, also has grown infatuated with 44-year-old Janet, who's married, living a double life for Queen and country. That and the eventual promise of money, 80 million pounds or $94.5 million. The promise to meet Prime Minister Tony Blair and the promise of sex.
Just putting the whole thing on the table.
I don't know many teenage boys that wouldn't do pretty much anything for the promise of sex.
Yeah.
I don't know many grown men that won't do most things for the promise of sex. I mean, true story.
Yeah, just nodding over here. It doesn't work on a podcast, but I'm just sadly nodding.
So Mark, who had been given the code name 47695, was given another test. So for reasons that were not explained to Mark, he was told that Prime Minister Tony Blair needed for John, this important asset who has the access code to this secret safe, to be seen as gay. In order to prove this, Mark was needed. Can you guess how he was needed?
As John's boyfriend?
Well, he was needed to perform a sex act on John. And that was to be proof that one, well, it was going to help prove that John was gay. And two, it would be Mark's proving his worthiness to be ready for his MI5 mission.
Wow.
So, again, without questioning, Mark passes the test. Mark has passed all of his tests and is now ready for his official MI5 induction. So Janet presents the mission. She says in chat, again, this is all chat, could you stab someone? He says, I haven't really thought about it. She says, well, think, please. He says, okay. Janet then informed Mark that John had developed an incurable brain tumor and was suffering unbearably, and it needed to be put to an end. The suffering had to be put to an end. And if Mark didn't complete this job, Janet would lose her job and national security would be at risk. Because again, John has this access code. And I guess with this brain tumor, it would be prone to let him tell people.
Just loss of inhibition or
maybe
consequences. Just telling people, hey, if you can get to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, I got a surprise for you.
But here's the thing. If he did complete that job, he would finally receive the 80 million pounds, the sexual favors, the Secret Service career, and the Tony Blair meeting. The plan was to take John to the Trafford Shopping Center in I'm going to say this wrong, and I apologize. Altrincham, and commit the act unless the numbers 6969 were uttered. That was the abort code.
Right.
But first, Mark would need the right tools, a knife, and it, quote, had to be big. It had to be big to stab him and make him bleed to death. So Mark was instructed to go to a store named Boots to get such knife. Boots. He was then to call the ambulance after a set amount of time. Janet was to be the first on the scene, disguised as a detective, to ensure that Mark wasn't arrested. On June 28th, the chat, after all of this, the chat continues, and Mark says he will die in the middle of Alti. That's the Alti tram place. Janet says, please. But that's what will happen. She says, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Mark says, I understand that. Janet says, Trafford Center or Manchester? Mark says, you want me to take him to Trafford Center and kill him in the middle of Trafford Center? That's what you're asking? She says, yes. And Mark says, and just leave him to die in Trafford Center? Janet says, no, stay with him. Mark says, what do I do then? Get help? Janet says, yes, I'll get help for you. There's a break in the conversation for a little while. And then later that evening, Janet says, change of plan. Don't wear glove. Pull knife out and say you took it out. And Mark says, okay, but it will have one set of fingerprints. Janet says he wore gloves, meaning the alleged assailant. Mark says, okay. Janet says 6969, abort code, okay? Mark, okay. Janet must stop straight away with 6969. Mark says, how will I be told that? Janet says, shout it over Tannoy. I'm not exactly sure what Tannoy is. I meant to look that up. Again, I found the story today. So I apologize if I don't know what Tannoy is. But I'm assuming that it's like maybe a speaker system or something. Okay, it is. It's a public address system in a large building. Okay. It's amazing what you can find with a quick, like, instant Google search. Anyway, so on June 29th, Mark bought a kitchen knife, pretending that he was buying it for his mom, all while avoiding the best that he could CCTV cameras that Janet had warned him about. Then he leads John down an alley. Mark stabbed John twice. Once in the chest, once in the stomach, saying, I love you, bro, as he stabbed him. Earlier in the conversation, Janet at one point says, but don't you love him? And Mark says, yes. Then she says, then you'll do this. So visibly shaken, Mark tells the dispatcher that an unknown hooded man stabbed his friend. I should say that he waited 20 minutes before calling.
Oh.
So he waited 20 minutes, as he was instructed to do, to make sure that he bled out. So, visibly shaken and visibly upset, Mark tells the dispatcher that an unknown hooded man stabbed his friend. He described the hooded man as someone in their early 20s wearing a black hooded jacket and black jeans. Police immediately issue an APB to find this unprovoked perpetrator. Officers pore over CCTV footage looking for clues, all while appealing to the public for any possible leads. Fast forward a few days when the case takes an unexpected turn, at least for police anyway. After scouring this CCTV footage, police found that only John and Mark had entered that alleyway around the time of the attack. No one entered before or after. So now Mark is the prime suspect in the attempted murder. He is now charged with attempted murder. It was after Mark's admission, once he was charged, Mark decided, I'm coming clean. I'm going to tell you everything.
Yeah.
So after Mark's admission, police began to uncover the web of crazy that has been spun. Police seized both boys' computers and found the chat combos. And after scouring thousands of lines of chat, 58,000, police realized not only were the people fake, we've talked about Rachel, we've talked about Kevin, we've talked about Janet. There was two more that weren't really relevant to the story, but they were relevant between Mark and Kevin. There was a Lindsay East, another young female that was introduced to Mark, who was killed off by the British government when Mark began to show too much interest in her.
Okay.
And a guy named Dave McNeil. Not much more has been said about Dave. But we also had a reappearance by Rachel, who wasn't dead after all. She was just in a coma.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So every time Mark seemed to maybe lose a little bit of interest, John would introduce a new character. John had been the mastermind of this entire thing at 14 years old.
Eesh.
Which meant that it was John who had sent the final mission messages to Mark, meaning John had in fact planned his own murder.
Yeah.
So Mark pled guilty to attempted murder. Of course, attempted murder means John survived. John did survive. Right. He almost died twice immediately after the attack. Police say he was in the hospital for a little more than a week before being sent home, released for home. So Mark pled guilty. 20
minutes. Holy cow. Huh? I thought he would have died after 20 minutes.
I know. I guess when you're young, man.
Yeah.
So Mark, like I said, pled guilty to attempted murder. Also in court, he revealed that he himself, after now being in court and hearing all this evidence, couldn't believe how gullible he had been. He received a 2-year suspension order and was banned from any contact with John. John pled guilty to perverting the course of justice and the incitement of murder. He was given a 3-year suspended sentence and also ordered to have no contact with Mark. He was also told that he was only allowed access to the internet under adult supervision and not allowed in any chat rooms. Mark also had to have supervision if getting on the internet. Sentencing judge David Madison said, quote, "Skilled writers of fiction would struggle to conjure up a plot such as that which arises here. It's staggering to be dealing with a case that arises out of a 14-year-old boy's invention of false personalities, false relationships, and events arranged for his own killing." So I guess the question remains, why? Because by all accounts, John had been a relatively normal teen, but obviously there was something going on. Detective Chief Inspector Julian Ross says John's actions are baffling. His reasons have been up for debate since the case happened.
Mm-hmm.
Some say a fascination for Mark turned into an unrequited love that he knew he could never have. It would never be a requited love, and the only way out was suicide, but by murder. It all started because he felt so unlovable on his own that he invented Rachel. Thus, his interactions with Mark began giving him a sense of an emotional connection, an intimacy that he had never felt before.
Mm-hmm.
At 4 years old, he realized after finding a baby book with his name and a different last name that his father, the man he grew up with, the man he knew, wasn't actually his father. Then at 7, his stepfather left him his mom and his younger sister. He was teased in elementary school, and he kept all of this inside, and it resulted in a type of compulsive behavior. He began bathing and dressing in a certain rigid fashion, never straying. Objects in his room had to be ordered precisely. And then just before all of the ordeal happened, John's mother met someone new, a plumber who became her love interest and eventually moved in. And John believed that he was receiving more attention than him. Mind you, he's got a little sister, so shouldn't he be used to sharing attention?
No. Different when you're the man of the house, quote
I mean,
unquote,
yeah, I guess. And who knows if it was real or perceived.
Right.
So eventually he turns to the internet because he doesn't feel as if he belongs. At the age of 13, John receives his very own laptop. And by February of 2003, he was online chatting with 20 to 30 people a night in various chat rooms. He found Mark almost immediately. And by April, Mark was in love with Rachel. And, well, we know the rest of that story. Sally Hogg, who is a police analyst, told Vanity Fair that the amount of info on both computers was 133 gigabytes, which is more than imagine, we carry around that much in our phone, but that's a lot of information. That's a lot of information.
Yeah.
She said if converted to paper, it would be equivalent to 46,000 feet high, like stacked. That's how much information was on those computers. So when I say that the 58,000 lines of text was just scratching the surface, it was.
Wow.
From what I could find, both boys, after sentencing, vastly changed their personalities once they weren't in contact with each other anymore. John went to counseling with a psychologist and even had a girlfriend for a bit. But since they were minors and their real names cannot be released, there's not much more that I could find out. I can tell you that John apparently still loved crafting really vivid stories because he told his therapist that he was making up stories for the benefit of his then girlfriend. Fantastical stories, he said, that he was the star of. Like an example, his stabbing was actually the result of a revenge because he had identified a killer that was on the loose. Which, I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of true.
Yeah. I mean, the best lies have a grain of truth in them.
But that is the chilling spy adventures of John and Mark.
I mean, and and everybody lived.
Right, which is unusual for us.
Yeah.
Everybody lived.
And these kids are probably, by this point, in their 30s, right?
Well, yeah, because that was 2003 and they were 14, 16. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they could just be living normal lives and nobody's the wiser.
But I mean, at 14, that kid wrote a better fiction than, I don't know, John Grisham.
Yeah. Well, and he knew he had, he wrote to his audience too, because, like Mark said, he was pretty gullible and, He was ready to believe anything.
But even
he had a willing suspension of disbelief.
But even the judge, because he would change his tone per character. He didn't write the same for each character. He adjusted for each character. And even the judge, for him to say, I mean, like, all of this was created by a 14-year-old.
Yeah. Well, active imagination. Get that kid in a writing class. Maybe we could avoid this.
Shoo. But the good news is everybody did in fact live.
Everybody lived.
Everybody
it's a
lived.
A-side, B-side first.
It's a second.
That's never happened. It's a second? Everybody living?
Yeah. The story of Terry Jandusa. She didn't die. She lived.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So we've had two. She went through a lot more than John went through.
Yes, she did.
Yeah. And the fact that they were just like, well, suspended sentence, don't use a computer. See you later.
Yeah. I mean, or your mom has to stand over your shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah. You got parental supervision so you don't accidentally hire someone to kill you again.
No chat rooms.
And for any of the youngins that are listening to this podcast, chat rooms are kind of like Reddit.
Oh my gosh, Grandpa. For any of the youngins.
You know, those youth today in their Reddits. If it happened today, it would all play out on Reddit or like TikTok or something.
And there would be more people involved.
Yeah. You'd probably be one of those deep fakes.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Maybe, yeah.
That's going to be the new catfishing. The deep fakes.
Yeah, I just read a story about a mom who deep faked a bunch of photos of girls on her daughter's cheerleading team to like get them kicked off.
In like Pennsylvania or something, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and like the daughter had no idea. I was like, oof.
Yeah, she sent like photos of them drinking, smoking, and like having sex. She sent it like to the coach and the coach, and she sent it to the girls. And then she had the nerve to tell the girls, why don't you just kill yourself?
Yeah.
Fortunately, the coach and the parents went to the police and she has been arrested. But that's like, she's a disgusting, horrible person.
That feels like a made for TV movie plot.
That's what I said earlier. I was, because we talked about it on the on air, and I was like, I swear I feel like this was a Lifetime movie already.
Yeah. Definitely could be.
Man.
Whew. All right. Well, everybody lived. I like that. The rest of it's kind of disturbing. Teenagers. What can you do?
But that's that's the B side.
And it's funny because for the A side today, and we don't plan this. Like, I don't know what you're gonna say. You don't know what I'm gonna say. But I'm also talking about teenagers.
Interesting.
So, small world. So for the A side today, it all has to do with today's date. And today is Wednesday, March 24th. We record on Wednesday and then it goes live on Friday. So as we are recording this, it is March 24th. And March 24th is a pretty important date in movie history. It was on this day, March 24th, it was a Saturday in 1984, when 5 uniquely challenged teenagers met for detention at Sherman High School in the movie The Breakfast Club. And because of that, today's A-side will focus on a few things, facts, trivia, unknown behind-the-scenes things from The Breakfast Club that you might not have known before. So, Brooke, when was the last time you watched The Breakfast Club?
Maybe about 3 years ago.
That's fair. It's usually on like TNT or TBS, and I'll be like flipping channels and I'll end up like watching half of it. But it's been a long time since I rewatched the whole thing. So I actually rewatched it today because I wanted to I was looking for some information and I was like, wow, I haven't seen it in a while. So I rewatched it. And one thing that I had never known before, and I discovered in the research today, is that the entire movie was filmed in sequence. So the first thing they shot is the first thing you see in the movie, and the last thing they shot was the last thing you see in the movie, and they did it in order, which is kind of crazy because how often do you hear about filming bouncing all over the place, and the actors really not being able to know the whole story or see the whole story until they go to the premiere and that sort of thing. But in The Breakfast Club, they did it straight through, almost like it was a theatrical performance. So for these facts, trivia, behind the scenes thingies, we're going to start at the top, just as John Hughes would do. And we're going to go with the opening quote from the movie. It comes from a song by David Bowie, and it is from the song Changes, and it's kind of in the bridge in the middle, and I'm going to slaughter it, so just be ready. And these children that you spit on as they try to change their worlds are immune to your consultations. They're quite aware of what they're going through. That was actually suggested by actress Ali Sheedy. She was listening to a lot of David Bowie at the time, and she felt like that line spoke directly to this movie and suggested it to writer and director John Hughes, who loved it so much that he put it into the film right at the very beginning, which is kind of cool. And if you have not listened to David Bowie's Changes in a while, definitely look that up on your Spotify or YouTube music. So good. His Best Of album is one of my top 5 Best Of albums of all time. It's really, really good. Next, Judd Nelson. Everybody knows Judd Nelson, Bender, the bad guy character. Well, he was actually a bit of a problem, not only on set, but even during auditions. He stayed in character the entire time. So when he showed up to the audition, he actually was creating a ruckus and being a pain in the butt in the lobby of the, like where everyone's waiting to go in and do their audition, that the secretary who was lining everybody up moved him to the front of the line so she could get him out of the waiting room because he was causing a ruckus, because he was in character as Bender the whole time. After he got the role, he stayed in character on set, even to the point where he was almost fired for constantly teasing and picking on and just never stopping going after Molly Ringwald in her character Claire, who played the sort of pretty in pink princess, rich girl, snobby. They threatened to fire him. They had to pull him aside and say, hey, dude, if you don't knock this off, we have to get rid of you because everyone's complaining and you can't be in character all the time. He also was horrible at hitting his spots. He would walk into a scene and decide that his character would go someplace else, but you can't do that when all the cameras are set up to record you in one spot. So they had a lot of problems with him just kind of wandering around the set and often being out of frame until they had to reshoot scenes. And finally they got him together, and it turned into one of the probably most memorable roles of the movie. Another memorable role in the movie is the janitor. The janitor, who has a minor role, but was a former student at the school and who also had detention at one point that comes out later. He was originally cast, the actor that was originally cast in that role was Rick Moranis of Ghostbusters and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and a whole bunch of other 80s and 90s movies. He had just come off the success of Ghostbusters, and he had an idea to play the character of the janitor very over the top. Maybe it was his success from Ghostbusters where he plays just a man who gets turned into a demon dog at one point, spoiler alert. But he wanted to play the character as a Russian, complete with a accent and gold teeth and this giant keychain that he would wear on his belt between his legs and swing the keys around as he emphasized words. And the director, writer John Hughes, and the rest of the production team, after a couple of test shoots, decided that wasn't the way they wanted to go with the character, as it was a little too over the top, and eventually recast the role to a bit more understated. Which it would have been interesting to see Rick Moranis, but I don't think you can have somebody that over the top in a movie that's actually pretty poignant and serious for most of it. Mm-hmm. It was not originally called The Breakfast Club. There were 2 previous names, which I think everyone will be very glad that they didn't go with. The first one was Library Revolutionaries, which seems like an entirely different movie. Like it should be more of a warfare, like, or Les Mis or something. And then the second one sounds like a Saturday morning cartoon. It was The Lunch Bunch. I don't know that The Lunch Bunch would have had the same gravitas that The Breakfast Club did. Plus, breakfast detention sounds a lot worse than just lunch detention. Early morning Saturday detention, that's just got to be awful. So, the cast, of course, with Judd Nelson as John Bender, Molly Ringwald as Claire Standish, Ali Sheedy as Allison Reynolds, Anthony Michael Hall as the youngest member, Brian, and then Emilio Estevez as the jock.
Quick side note, because we talked about this morning on my radio show. Judd and Emilio were actually like 26 at the time of this.
Yeah. I mean, it's the classic Hollywood thing where they're like, oh, we have a show about teenagers, but we're going to cast people that are nearly 30.
Yeah. Molly and Anthony were both like 16 because they had just come off of 16 Candles. And then Allie was 18, I believe.
And then the two guys are like way older.
They're like 26.
It fits, yeah. So those actors have become, iconic for their participation in Breakfast Club, and no one could really. It's hard to imagine somebody else playing those roles, but they weren't almost any of them the first choices for those roles. For the role of Bender, both a very young Nicolas Cage, and John Cusack were considered to play the role. John Cusack basically kind of played a version of the role in Say Anything Later, which he would have done really, really well. So I could see that working. Nicolas Cage just feels like he would have been too over the top, but I don't know. The role of Claire, played by Molly Ringwald, was offered to Laura Dern, Jodie Foster, and Robin Wright as well, which I think they all could have done a great job, but it just feels so weird to think of them in the role. It's kind of like finding out this week that I found out that Tom Hanks was offered Batman in Batman Forever, which eventually went to Val Kilmer. And I can't mentally make that work in my head. Tom Hanks is Batman. I'm sure he would have been great. Boy, I'm having a really hard time.
Well, there's no need to because it didn't happen.
Yeah. There's some alternate reality. There is a Batman with Tom Hanks in it, and I'm not ready for that. So the location for the movie, the high school, was also the location for the high school in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which we mentioned in the B-side about trying to get your friend out of school by pretending to be dad outside. So that's a little connection between the two sides. One moment that always grossed me out as a kid and still grosses me out to this day from the movie was when Ali Sheedy's character, Allison, shakes her hair and all the dandruff falls out on the table.
Yeah, she's snowing on her picture.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense moment, and I never thought about how they made that work, but according to the sources I found today, that was actually Parmesan cheese.
Oh, wow.
So you just imagine somebody with a big green can of Parmesan cheese, dumping it into her hair right before the take, and then her shaking it off onto the table. Now they would probably just do CGI or something, CGI dandruff.
Maybe.
So over the last 48 hours, I have worked one shift at work. I've watched an entire season of Blacklist, half a season of Elementary, at least 4 movies, and I've made several meals. It's been raining in Minnesota, so I have been in hermit mode and I haven't left the house. But in that 48 hours, I could have been way more productive because it only took John Hughes 2 days over July 4th and July 5th of the early 80s to write the entire script for The Breakfast Club. Instead, I made mac and cheese with some broccoli and chicken. Probably not going to last as long as
potato tomato.
Yeah, good for the goose, good for the gander. And one of the most well-known songs from the film, and I will probably get this as soon as I say the title, will be stuck in your head. But by Simple Minds, it was called "Don't You Forget About Me."
Forget about me. Don't.
Amazing song, so much fun. You can hear it and you'll immediately be back in the first time you saw Breakfast Club, but it was written specifically for the movie, and it was Simple Minds' only number one hit ever because of the success of the movie, and it's a really great song. And then finally, we started this list of trivia, facts, and behind the scenes things with the first moment of the film, which was the quote from David Bowie's Changes. And we end it with the last iconic image from the film. And of course, that is Judd Nelson, his character Bender, walking across the field and thrusting his fist into the sky in what becomes the most recognizable image probably from the movie. But like many great Hollywood moments, it was completely unscripted. Director John Hughes told Nelson to walk into the sunset and try different things, kind of different reactions as he was walking. They filmed a bunch of them, and they finally said, "Okay, we're done." And Nelson was excited and thrust his fist in the air because they were done filming, and that was the moment that everybody loved, and they decided to keep. So it's pretty cool that something that was so iconic was completely spur of the moment, and probably if the cameras hadn't been rolling, might have been lost forever. So in the last year, for kids across the world, school has not really been a thing. But maybe in the future, someone, maybe like a John Hughes or someone inspired by him, will make a movie about high school via Zoom. And John Hughes had actually, when he first made The Breakfast Club, he had a plan to update it and do a new one every 10 years. So we would be coming up on our, 3 years now, it would be the 40th anniversary. So there would be the fourth sequel to The Breakfast Club. So maybe because of this strange reality that has happened now, John Hughes can take another 48 hours and update The Breakfast Club for a modern era with Zoom and all that stuff, and have it come out in 2024 on the 40th anniversary. So I'm just going to put that out into the ether because I think it would be really cool to see it updated.
It'd be kind of hard for John Hughes to.
That's true. He's dead.
Movie.
Yeah, somebody else would have to do it. It would be really impressive if he did it, though.
It would be.
Yeah,
because he's been dead for a while.
So maybe somebody else, maybe a kid or somebody, somebody connected to it. I think it would be an interesting thing, but it probably will never be the same because you don't have the driving influence that was the John Hughes 80s teenage movie bonanza. Probably feel a little weird.
Well, I think it's interesting though, because there have been several kind of more modern takes, like different shows and stuff like that have kind of done their own spin-off version. I want to say it was Victorious on Nickelodeon.
Right. And then even something like 10 Things I Hate About You, or you've got the teen high school drama has always been a trope that people go back to time and time again. Hey, they just relaunched Saved by the Bell this year on the what is it on the
Peacock?
Paramount Plus now?
Is it Paramount?
Peacock.
I thought it was
on
Peacock.
No, it's on Peacock. You're right. So that's back. So there's no doubt that it'll continue to be a thing. But if you have not seen The Breakfast Club in a while, I highly recommend taking some time and traveling back to March 24th, 1984, and getting caught up in a little nostalgia. And as I mentioned earlier, for the youngins, if you've never seen The Breakfast Club, go watch it and you'll maybe understand some things your parents do a little bit differently.
Like what?
I don't know. I just think watching movies that your parents watched when they were in their formative years is a good way to understand them in a different concept or different, view. Gives you perspective.
Okay.
Or that's what I've always tried to do. And I think when my kids watch movies that I watched at that age, they're like, oh, yeah, Dad's been telling that joke for 10 years.
I just saw an article. It says like comedies to watch if you love Breakfast Club. Of course, like you mentioned, 10 Things I Hate About You is on there. But I love that Say Anything is on there, because talk about another classic 80s movie.
So good. That, I mean, honestly, the John Cusack has always been like, if I could steal someone's career, and I couldn't steal Michael J. Fox because that's just who I'd want to be, I would probably try to steal John Cusack's, because he's been in so many great movies, in so many different types of movies. And Say Anything, Better Off Dead is great. I mean, all the way down to like High Fidelity and Grosse Point Blank, and he was Being John Malkovich, and just a really amazing career that just kind of spans all genres. I mean, heck, he was in Con Air.
He was actually in a kind of a thriller, like playing a bad guy, that I watched recently. I can't think of the name of it, but it was like, really? That's John Cusack?
Yeah, I mean, he's done like scary movies, like there was the one where he was like trapped in a hotel that was like evil, room 1408. Yeah, he's been in just a little bit of everything. It's pretty crazy. Hot Tub Time Machine.
Of course, his sister is big actress as well. But anyway, that's a whole nother show. So
yeah, it's a whole nother show. But yeah, Say Anything, super great movie. If you have a couple days to kill, the John Hughes Brat Pack era movies are definitely worth a rewatch.
All right, there you go. Is that the A side?
That is the A side.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, I want to thank you again, as always, for supporting the show. You can do that several ways. One, just thank you for being with us, because that's a great way to support the show. Oh, also, can I just tell you that I wanted to fangirl over the weekend. I've mentioned this podcast before, My Favorite Murder.
Mm-hmm.
And I had actually listened to it the other day, and I tweeted at one of the show hosts, Georgia Hardstark, about something on the episode. And after I tweeted at her, she started to follow me, fangirled just a little bit.
Very cool.
Actually, quite a lot.
And we also, this week, I think it's coming out next week, we did another movie battle.
Yes.
Which was pretty exciting.
Yes, Kevin on Movie Battle is great to have us on and to tolerate us, because Adam got a little was a little animosity, I feel like, being thrown at me during this movie battle. I don't know what that was about, but
well, there was you were yelling. I was scared.
I was yelling because you were throwing animosity at me.
Yeah, it was a battle. You can't play nice.
Anyway, thanks for supporting the show. Thank you so much for listening and taking this journey with us. You can always support the show by heading on over to Apple and giving us a rating or a review, both, if you so choose. Also, you can buy us a coffee, buymeacoffee.com/A-side-B-side-pod. You can check out our website. Of course, we always post the videos. Well, I turn the podcast into videos. Those are always on our site. You can always listen on Spotify, on Apple, anywhere that streaming is available as well. There's merch on our site, and we always post our sources on our website as well, asidebsidepodcast.square.site. And there's a little bit about both Adam and I on the site as well.
And you shared a photo today, or maybe it was yesterday, I'm not good with time, of somebody in the Bad Vibes Save Lives hoodie, looking pretty great. So
yes, Arlene. That was Arlene in the Bad Vibes Saves Lives hoodie, the red. That red is smoking. Yeah. That is a fire, like, for real. I actually have on, it's called Carolina blue. It's like a little baby powder blue. I have it on right now, actually, because it was cold in my living room. So I was like, hey, you should see the array of just A-side, B-side sweatshirts I have on the chairs to grab at any given moment when I get cold.
Hey, nothing wrong with having extra sweatshirts.
Also, let's see. Oh, we have social medias. We have a Twitter, we have an Instagram, we have a Facebook, and we have an email. You can email us. It's asidebsidepodcasts. There's an S at the end of that at gmail.com. If you have a story that you would like for either me to look into, or maybe you have a movie or TV show that you'd like Adam to talk about, we'd always love to hear that. If you have a correction for us, like I've said a name wrong, because I probably have, especially in the UK cities. I know I butcher those, and I apologize. I'm American. Sorry. We Americans don't know how to say those names real well.
We say things weird over here.
So if you need to send us a correction, we don't mind. Just let us know. And as always, thank you so much. Adam, thanks.
Thank you, Brooke.
This is Kevin Armstrong, your host for Movie Battle. Each episode, we take 2 films and put a superfan of each against one another to decide which one is best. The only rule we have is that you come correct. If you're interested in being a guest on Movie Battle, please check us out on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter.
As always, thank you for listening to A-Side, B-Side podcast. If you enjoy the show, please, if you don't mind, head on over to Apple and leave us a rating or a review. And if you'd like to continue to support the podcast, you can do so by heading on over to Patreon, or you can buy us a coffee, as well as buying merch on our website, asidebsidepodcast.square.site. From Adam and I at A-Side, B-Side podcast, please remember to wear your mask, social distance if you're around people that don't live in your household, and just be safe and happy. Thanks again from us here at A-Side, B-Side podcast.